Get off my console! Kale jolted awake, the cryostasis hangover slamming into him like a bulkhead door. His vision swam, focusing on a shimmer of impossible color draped over his pilot's chair. It wasn't draped, it was sitting there, long limbs folded impossibly tight, fingers like spun glass tracing the activation sequence for his emergency beacon. Fingers attached to a hand, attached to an arm, attached to... Her head snapped up, eyes like molten gold, wide and unblinking, fixed on him. Her skin was the color of a starless night sky, but alive with shifting patterns of internal light, soft blues and violets pulsing beneath the surface. Delicate bioluminescent tendrils, maybe 4 of them, swayed gently from her upper back, their tips emitting sparks of emerald light that danced in the cramped cockpit's gloom. She tilted her head, a gesture that was somehow both predatory and intensely curious. A low, melodic hum vibrated in the air, seeming to emanate from her chest. "Your vassal," she said, her voice a strange harmony of chimes and whispers, the universal translator implant in his ear struggling slightly to smooth it out, "is remarkably resilient. For its age." Kale scrambled upright from the deck plating where he'd apparently passed out after the asteroid field fiasco and the subsequent emergency cryo. Pain shot through his shoulder. "Who the hell are you? How did you get on my ship?" He grabbed the nearest blunt instrument, a hydrospanner. She unfolded herself with liquid grace, easily towering over him. The lights under her skin flared brighter, shifting towards oranges and reds. The tendrils behind her stiffened, their tips glowing intensely. "I sought refuge. Your flight path intersected my escape trajectory." Her golden eyes scanned him, lingering on the hydrospanner. A corner of her surprisingly human-like mouth quirked up. "Are you intending to adjust me?" "I'm intending to figure out who you are and why you're messing with my distress signal," Kale growled, hefting the spanner. It felt ridiculously inadequate. "Standard procedure." She took a step closer. The air crackled with ozone and the lights on his console flickered. Her scent hit him then. Exotic, like spiced ozone and blooming night flowers. Utterly alien and strangely intoxicating. "Standard procedure is inefficient. My pursuers will detect any broad-spectrum signal." Another step. She was invading his space, deliberately testing his reaction. Her tendrils swayed, one brush in. Gee, his arm, it felt like static electricity and warm silk. He flinched back. "Pursuers? What kind of—" "The kind that dissect things they don't understand," she interrupted smoothly, her gaze sharp. "Or things they covet." She reached out, not for the console this time, but for him. Her fingers, cool and smooth, brushed his cheek before he could react. The lights under her skin pulsed, a soft, calming cyan. "Your biological signs are erratic. Stress hormones elevated, adrenaline spiking." Her touch was light, inquisitive, yet held an undertone of possession. "Are you damaged?" Kale slapped her hand away, though the contact left a tingling warmth on his skin. "I'm fine. Stop touching me. And stop reading my vitals," or whatever the hell that was. Her smile widened, revealing slightly pointed canines. Of the lights flared yellow, amusement. "My apologies. Tactile assessment is primary for my kind." She gestured vaguely at herself. "Lyra of the Luminar." "Kyle of the Get Off My Ship clan," he retorted, lowering the spanner slightly but not dropping it. "Look, Lyra, I just survived getting my hull shredded by space rocks. I'm low on fuel, running on emergency power, and I woke up to find an alien refugee hotwiring my ride. My SS is perfectly justified." Lyra's expression shifted, the amusement fading, replaced by something more calculating. The lights swirl, deep violets and silver. "Your survival is convenient. Fortunate." She looked past him, towards the viewport showing only the swirling nebula they were drifting in. "My escape pod was compromised. Your vessel is functional, if aesthetically displeasing." "Hey, the rust bucket has character. It has imminent system failure," she corrected, tapping a flickering alert on a secondary screen Kale hadn't even noticed was active. "Power core fluctuations are critical. We have approximately 1 standard hour before containment fails." Kale lunged towards the console, shoving past her. The readings were dire, worse than he'd thought. "Damn it, cryo must have addled me more than usual." He frantically started running diagnostics, fingers flying across the controls. Lyra watched him, her head tilted again. The lights under her skin softened to a gentle rhythmic pulse of blue-green. One of her tendrils reached out, hesitantly this time, and rested lightly on his shoulder. It felt strangely grounding. Perhaps, she murmured, her voice losing some of its formal edge, sounding almost hopeful. Our meetin' was not mere chance. Perhaps you can help me. Kale grunted, trying to reroute power from life support, minimal settings anyway. Help you how? By not exploding? That's kind of my priority right now. Lyra leaned closer, her strange, intoxicating scent filling his senses. Her lips were near his ear. My people are dying, Kale of the Rust Bucket. And the data signatures within your human genome, they resonate, they might hold the key. He froze, diagnostic forgotten. Your genetic structure, Lyra repeated, her voice a low thrum against his ear. The tendril on his shoulder tightened almost imperceptibly, sending a wave of warmth through his jacket. It possesses a unique harmonic frequency, compatible, potentially restorative. Kale pulled away, turning to face her, the cramped space forcing them nearly chest to chest. Her golden eyes searched his, intense and unnervingly direct. The shifting lights under her skin were mesmerizing, like watching a captured nebula. Whoa, hold on. Restorative, how? What are you talking about? He felt a prickle of alarm mixed with a confusing surge of something else. Curiosity, attraction. The cryo hangover wasn't helping his equilibrium. My species, the Luminar, face extinction, she stated, the lights dimming to somber violets and deep blues. Centuries of genetic isolation have led to instability, degradation. Our lifelights fade too quickly. New blood is needed. New blood, Kale echoed flatly. And you think my blood is the magic ingredient? He gestured vaguely at his own decidedly non-glowing human form. Based on what? Some fancy space scan you ran while I was out cold? Lyra's expression remained serious, though a flicker of something impatience mirrored in her eyes, mirrored by a flash of orange light. Not scans, resonance. My senses perceive biosignatures, Kale. Yours sings a compatible song. Ancient records, fragments of lore from the first travelers, spoke of convergences, of species whose fundamental life matrices could intertwine. Humans were among those mentioned. Intertwine, Kale repeated slowly, the word hanging heavy in the recycled air. He didn't like the sound of that. Define intertwine. A faint blush of rose colored her cheekbones, visible even through the darker pigment. Joining. A sharing of genetic material to strengthen the subsequent lineage. Her gaze dropped for a fraction of a second before meeting his again, bolder this time. Procreation. Kale stared at her. Then he laughed, a short, incredulous bark. You're kidding. You crash land on my ship, tell me we're about to blow up, and then hit me with an interstellar booty call to save your species? Lady, your timing is legendary. The lights under her skin flared a bright, sharp crimson. Her tendrils lifted slightly, quivering. This is not trivial. It is the continuation of a people, a culture, millennia of existence. She took a step back, creating a sliver of distance, her regal bearing snapping back into place. And I assure you, the process is far more involved than your crude phrasing implies. Oh, I bet it is, Kale muttered, turning back to the failing console. Priority 1, not dying. Priority 2, figuring out how to politely decline becoming alien baby daddy number 1. Look, princess. Lyra, she corrected sharply. Lyra. Even if I believed this resonance stuff, and even if we weren't about to become cosmic dust, saving your entire species is a bit above my pay grade. I'm a scavenger, not a genetic savior. He slammed a fist on the console as another system flatlined. Damn it! Lyra was silent for a moment, the only sound the ominous hum of the dying core and the soft, almost liquid shifting of the lights beneath her skin. They cycled through agitated reds and oranges before settling back into a tense violet. We require a stable energy source to initiate repairs, she said, her tone clipped, professional again. Is there an emergency power cell? Yeah, in the aft storage, Kale grunted, trying to bypass a fried circuit. But it's auxiliary, barely enough to keep life support running for a few hours, let alone restart the core. It will suffice, Lyra stated with certainty. My own bioenergy can supplement it temporarily. Kyle paused. You're what now? Luminar can channel metabolic energy, she explained, gesturing to herself. The lights pulsed brighter. It is taxing, but possible. Guide me. He hesitated. Letting her tamper with his ship's systems felt risky. Letting her channel unknown alien energy into his already failing power core felt insane, but the alternative was becoming a rapidly expanding cloud of debris. Fine, aft storage, Bay 3, but if you fry my ship further, the deal's off, no intertwining. Lyra followed him through the narrow corridor connecting the cockpit to the small cargo hold, her movements fluid and silent despite her height. The ship groaned around them, protesting the power fluctuations. Bay 3, W. As crammed with salvage tech, spare parts, and Kale's meager personal belongings, the emergency cell was bolted to the bulkhead, indicator lights dark. There it is, Kale said, reaching for the release lever. Lyra placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. Her touch was cool, but sent that same strange jolt through him. Allow me. She stepped forward, placing both hands flat against the dull metal casing of the power cell. The lights under her skin brightened dramatically, shifting to a blinding white gold. The air grew thick, heavy, humming with contained power. Her tendrils lashed the air, crackling with energy. Kale shielded his eyes, feeling the heat radiate from her. It was like standing too close to a furnace. He could feel the energy thrumming not just in the air, but in his bones, a deep, resonant vibration. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and deeply fundamentally alien. Lyra let out a sharp gasp, her body tensing, and the indicator lights on the power cell flickered, then glowed a steady green. She slumped back against the bulkhead, the intense light receding, leaving her skin patterned in soft, exhausted blues. She was breathing heavily. It is done, she panted, looking drained but triumphant. The cell is charged. Kale stared from the glowing cell back to her. She looked diminished, vulnerable. The powerful, regal alien princess suddenly seemed fragile. He felt an unexpected, unwelcome pang of concern. Are you okay? Lyra pushed herself upright, straightening slowly. I am, depleted but functional. She met his gaze, a faint smile touching her lips. The blue light pulsed gently. Now, Kale of the Rust Bucket, perhaps we can discuss saving your vessel, and then other matters. The charged power cell bought them time, stabilizing the core fluctuations enough for Kale to limp the Rust Bucket towards the nearest gravity well, a jungle-choked planet designated on his outdated charts only as Xylos. Entering the atmosphere was rough, the ship shuddering and groaning, but Kale wrestled the controls, his piloting skills honed by years of navigating asteroid fields and evading port authorities. Lyra remained mostly silent beside him, her energy seemingly focused inward, the lights under her skin a slow, steady pulse of deep blue. She still looked depleted, the usual vibrant intensity muted. He found himself stealing glances at her, noticing the slight tremor in her long fingers, the way her tendrils drooped almost listlessly. He told himself it as just tactical assessment, knowing her condition was important if trouble found them, which, given his luck and her mention of pursuers, seemed inevitable. They broke through the cloud cover into a world suffocating in green. Towering trees draped in thick vines formed a canopy so dense it plunged the forest floor into perpetual twilight. Strange, bioluminescent fungi dotted the landscape, casting eerie pools of light. Kale aimed for a relatively clear patch he spotted near a river snaking through the jungle, hoping it was solid ground. The landing was less a controlled descent and more a managed crash. Branches tore at the hull, alarms shrieked, and they slammed into the soft, loamy earth with a jolt that threw Kale against his harness, hard enough to knock the wind out of him. Silence descended, broken only by the ticking of cooling metal and the distant screech of unseen alien fauna. Well, Kale gasped, unbuckling himself. We're down. Ship's probably totaled, but we're alive. He looked over at Lyra. She hadn't braced for impact, simply observed the chaos outside with unnerving calm. She was already unbuckling, moving with her usual grace despite the violent landing. The vessel absorbed the impact adequately, she observed, running a hand over a crack spiderwebbing across the main viewport. Repairs will be extensive. Repairs? Kale laughed humorously. This heap is scrap metal now. Best we can hope for is salvaging the emergency beacon and finding a way to boost its signal. He pushed open the protesting cockpit door, the humid, earthy scent of the jungle flooding in. It was thick with the smell of damp soil, decaying vegetation, and 1,000 unknown pollens. Lyra followed him out, her golden eyes scanning the dense foliage, her tendrils twitching slightly, testing the air. The ambient light filtering through the canopy caught the subtle luminescence of her skin, making her look even more otherworldly against the backdrop of primal green. Boosting the signal may attract my pursuers before any potential rescuers, she cautioned. Her voice regaining some of its strength. We must be judicious. Right, pursuers, Ko grumbled, grabbing a survival pack and his trusty pulse rifle from the storage locker. Any description? What are we looking out for? They are relentless, Lyra said, her gaze distant for a moment. The lights under her skin flickered with a harsh, static-like pattern. Corvani Syndicate, slavers primarily. They prize new species. Luminar are rare. Her jaw tightened. My family's political rivals may also have alerted them to my location. Slavers and political rivals. You don't travel light on the enemies list, do you? Kale slung the rifle over his shoulder. Okay, priority 1, secure the perimeter, find water. Priority 2, salvage the beacon and comms equipment. Priority 3, figure out how you specifically are going to help us survive until we can signal for my kind of help, not yours. Lyra bristled slightly, the lights flaring orange. My senses are far superior to yours in this environment, Kale. I can detect approaching life forms, identify edible flora, navigate by energy signatures you cannot perceive. She took a step closer, invading his space again, her scent stronger in the humid air. And I still possess defensive capabilities. One of her tendrils snaked out, tapping his chest lightly over his heart. It sent a jolt straight through him, not unpleasant this time, more like a playful shock. Do not underestimate me. Wouldn't dream of it, Kale retorted, trying to ignore the way his pulse kicked up. Just try not to drain yourself defending us against weird space squirrels, okay? Save the light show for the actual bad G. Eyes, he turned and started pushing through the undergrowth towards the sound of the river. Come on, let's find a defensible spot before something decides we look like lunch. Lyra followed, moving through the dense jungle with surprising ease, her tall form slipping between vines and roots that snagged at Kale's clothes. He found himself acutely aware of her presence behind him, the soft rustle of her movements, the faint hum that seemed to accompany her, the occasional brush of a tendril against his back as the path narrowed. It was distracting, annoyingly so. They reached the riverbank, a wide, slow-moving ribbon of murky water. Across the river, half hidden by curtains of vines, rose the crumbling facade of ancient stone structures. Ruins. Well, look at that, Kale murmured. Civilization, or what's left of it. Lyra stared at the ruins, her head tilted, a soft turquoise glow emanating from her. There's residual energy here, very old, faint but resonant. She turned to Kale, her expression thoughtful. Perhaps this place offers more than shelter. Before Kale could ask what she meant, she suddenly stiffened. Her tendrils shot straight up, glowing a bright, alert red. Movement, she hissed, her voice low and urgent. Move. Tipple contacts, approaching fast, west flank. Kale spun, raising his rifle, peering into the dense green shadows. He couldn't see or hear anything over the jungle's ambient noise. How many? How far? 6, closing, less than 200 meters. Lyra's hands clenched, her own bioluminescence flaring, readying herself. Corvani signatures. Damn it, already? Okay, Kale said, his voice tight. New plan. Forget water, into the ruins, now. They scrambled across the river, the water surprisingly shallow, but the current deceptively strong. Kale slipped on a moss-covered rock, stumbling, pulse rifle nearly taking a dive. Lyra's hand shot out, grabbing his arm with surprising strength, steadying him. Her touch was firm, impersonal, focused entirely on their escape. The lights under her skin pulsed erratically, reds, oranges, flashes of white, a visual representation of her heightened senses and adrenaline. Faster, Kale, she urged, pulling him towards the opposite bank. He yanked his arm free once they were on solid ground, shaking off the lingering tingle. I'm going. They plunged into the shadow of the ruins, finding a crumbling archway half swallowed by strangler figs. Inside, the air was cool and still, smelling of damp stone. and dust. It was a large chamber, the ceiling lost in shadows far above, intricate carvings covering the walls depicting creatures that were part reptile, part machine. Strange geometric patterns pulsed with a faint, residual light, echoing Lyra's own luminescence. "In here," Kale whispered, pulling Lyra behind a massive, fallen pillar. He risked a glance back towards the river. Nothing yet, but the unsettling feeling of being watched prickled the back of his neck. Lyra pressed close beside him, her breathing shallow but controlled. Her shoulder brushed his, and even through his jacket he could feel the low thrum of energy emanating from her. Her scent, sharper now with alertness, filled the enclosed space. "Can you still sense them?" he murmured, keeping his voice low. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, her tendrils held perfectly still, tips glowing faintly. The patterns under her skin flowed like slow-moving currents, concentrating into intricate silver lines around her temples. Yes, they have crossed the river, spreading out, searching. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. The gold was flecked with sparks of red. "They are using scanners, thermal and biosignature. They will detect us soon." "Great." Kale checked the charge on his rifle. Decent, but probably not enough for 6 slavers. If they were well armed, he needed an advantage. "Can you mask our signatures? Do some of your energy stuff?" Lyra considered this, her brow furrowed. "I can attempt to create a localized dampening field, but it requires concentration and it will drain me further, and it may not fool their more sophisticated sensors entirely." "Better than nothing," Kale decided. "Do it. I'll watch the entrance." Lyra nodded curtly. She knelt, placing her palms flat on the dusty stone floor. The silver patterns around her temples intensified, and a soft, almost invisible shimmer expanded outwards from her, distorting the air like heat haze. The faint light from the wall carving seemed to dim slightly within the bubble. Kale felt a strange pressure in his ears, a subtle deadening of the ambient jungle sounds. He focused on the archway, rifle ready, straining his eyes in the gloom. Minutes crawled by, the silence stretched, thick with tension. He could hear Lyra's controlled breathing beside him, feel the faint vibration from her energy work. He found himself intensely aware of her proximity, the way the faint light caught the curve of her cheekbone, the focused intensity in her expression. This alien woman who wanted to use his DNA to save her people was currently expending her own life force to hide them both from imminent danger. It was confusing. A low whine cut through the dampened silence, the unmistakable sound of a scanner sweep. Kale tensed. Lyra's eyes snapped open, wide with alarm. The shimmer around them flickered. "They are close," she breathed, the lights under her skin fluctuating wildly. "The field is weakening." Heavy footsteps crunched on stone just outside the archway, shadows stretched, distorted by the crumbling entrance. Kale sighted down his rifle barrel. Lyra pushed herself up, abandoning the dampening field. Her lights flared a brilliant, defiant white gold, the color he'd seen when she charged the power cell. Power radiated from her, raw and potent. "Get ready," she whispered, her voice tight with strain but fierce. Before Kale could reply, a figure filled the archway, bulky, clad in dark armored plating, a heavy energy weapon held ready. Its helmeted head scanned the chamber, the red optical sensor sweeping across their position. It paused, locked on. Kale's finger tightened on the trigger, but Lyra moved first. With a sharp cry that was part roar, part chime, she thrust her hands forward. A blinding wave of pure light erupted from her palms, engulfing the Corvani slaver. He screamed, staggering back, weapon firing wildly into the ceiling, bringing down a shower of dust and stone chips. 2 more figures appeared behind the first, raising their weapons. Lyra stumbled, the light fading rapidly, her skin dimming to exhausted grays and blues. She swayed, clutching her head. "Now, Kale!" she gasped. Kale didn't hesitate. He opened fire, laying down suppressing shots towards the archway, forcing the other 2 slavers to duck back. "Move!" he yelled, grabbing Lyra's arm and pulling her deeper into the ruins. "There has to be another way out." They plunged into the labyrinthine passages beyond the main chamber, the sound of blaster fire echoing behind them. Lyra leaned heavily on him, her strength almost completely spent. Her tendrils drooped limply against her back. He half-dragged, half-carried her through corridors that twisted and turned, lit only by the faint glow of the wall carvings and the intermittent flashes of Lyra's fading light. They were lost, hunted, and Lyra was fading fast. His initial annoyance and suspicion were rapidly being replaced by grim protective instinct. He hadn't asked for a Andy didn't entirely understand. He just knew he couldn't let them catch her. They found temporary refuge in a smaller chamber, seemingly a dead end, blocked by a cave-in of massive stone blocks. Kale slumped against the wall, catching his breath, rifle still scanning the narrow passage they'd just squeezed through. Lyra slid down the opposite wall, her breath coming in ragged gasps, the light under her skin reduced to faint flickering traces of blue like dying embers. She looked utterly spent, her usual regal posture gone, replaced by a fragile exhaustion that tugged at something in Kale's chest. "Are they still following?" she whispered, her voice thin. Kale listened intently. The echoes of blaster fire had faded. Only the drip of water somewhere in the darkness, and their own breathing broke the silence. "Don't hear anything. Maybe we lost them in the maze. Or maybe they're just being quiet." He moved towards her, crouching down. "How are you? That light show back there was impressive, but it looked like it took a lot out of you." Lyra managed a weak smile. "The light show, as you call it, is a last resort. A full metabolic energy discharge, it leaves one depleted." She shivered, despite the humid air. "My reserves are dangerously low." He frowned, shedding his survival pack. He dug out a thermal blanket and an emergency ration bar. "Here!" He draped the blanket over her shoulders. She flinched slightly at the contact, but then leaned into the synthetic warmth, pulling it tighter around her slender frame. Her tendrils gave a faint, appreciative twitch. She eyed the ration bar warily. "What is this?" "Nutrient paste. Tastes like synth cardboard, but it's packed with calories. You need energy." Lyra took it hesitantly, turning it over in her long fingers. "My system metabolizes energy more directly, but sustenance is required." She took a small bite, chewed slowly, her expression unreadable. After a moment, she nodded almost imperceptibly. "Acceptable." They sat in silence for a while, the close confines of the chamber amplifying the sense of forced intimacy. Kale ate his own ration bar, acutely aware of Lyra, huddled under the blanket opposite him. The flickering remnants of her light cast faint, shifting patterns on the stone walls, making her features seem softer, more vulnerable. He found himself wanting to ask about her people, her escape, the intertwining she'd mentioned, but the moment felt wrong. She was too weak, too exposed. Instead, "Those carvings back there. You said they were resonant. What did you mean?" Lyra looked up, her golden eyes reflecting the dim light. "The beings who built this place, they understood energy manipulation, perhaps even bioresonance. Similar principles to luminar technology, but far more ancient. The patterns store residual energy, like batteries holding a faint charge over millennia." She traced a pattern on the wall beside her with a fingertip. A faint pulse of turquoise light followed her touch. "This place feels familiar, like a distant echo of home." A wave of profound sadness washed over her features, dimming her light further. "Home," she murmured, the word thick with loss. Kale felt another unwelcome pang, this time empathy. He knew what it was like to be adrift, disconnected. His life as a scavenger wasn't exactly grounded in community and belonging. "So," he said, changing the subject slightly, trying to inject some practicality back into the situation, "can you use that? The energy in the walls? Recharge yourself?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "It is too faint, diffused, and incompatible for direct absorption. It would be like trying to power your vessel with fireflies." She shivered again, pulling the blanket tig. "My own regenerative cycle requires rest and proximity to compatible biosignatures." Her gaze flickered towards him, then quickly away, a faint flush rising on her neck. "Oh." Kale shifted uncomfortably. "Compatible biosignatures like his." He remembered her words on the ship, her explanation for seeking him out. He hadn't thought about the intertwining having immediate implications beyond theoretical baby-making. "You mean being near me helps you recharge?" Lyra nodded, still avoiding his eyes. "Our species forms symbiotic resonance bonds. Even passive proximity to a compatible frequency aids recovery. It is subtle, usually requiring touch for full effect, but ambient closeness helps." She finally looked at him, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and something else. Apprehension? "I understand if this makes you uncomfortable. uncomfortable? Having a gorgeous, glowing alien princess tell him his mere presence acted like a battery charger for her, while they were hiding from slavers in ancient ruins? Yeah, uncomfortable was one word for it. Confusingly intriguing was another. Potentially very awkward definitely made the list. It's... Kale started, then stopped. What could he say? No problem, just leech my coat? Patable vibes while I try not to stare? He cleared his throat. Look, we need you functional. If sitting closer helps, then... He hesitated, then patted the space on the floor next to him. Scoot over. Lyra looked surprised, then a slow, tentative smile touched her lips. The blue light under her skin pulsed a little brighter. She shifted, sliding across the dusty floor until her shoulder brushed against his, the thin, thermal blanket the only barrier between them. He could feel the faint thrum of her energy, stronger now, mingling with his own body heat. Her exotic scent filled his senses. It wasn't unpleasant, far from it. Thank you, Kale, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. She leaned her head back against the wall, closing her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing evened out, deepening into sleep. The lights under her skin stabilized, pulsing in a slow, gentle rhythm of soft blue and green. Kale sat rigidly beside her, hyper-aware of her warmth, her scent, the soft sound of her breathing. He was trapped in a dead-end ruin on an alien jungle planet, hiding from slavers with an exhausted alien princess practically asleep on his shoulder, recharging from his machinery off the rails. And the most confusing part? He didn't entirely mind. Kale must have dozed off, lulled by the rhythmic pulsing of Lyra's light and the steady warmth beside him. He woke with a start, every nerve-ending screaming danger. Lyra was already awake, tense beside him, her eyes wide, fixed on the passageway entrance. Her lights were no longer the soft blues of sleep, but a sharp, alert orange, casting flickering shadows in the confined space. They found us, she whispered, her voice low and urgent. Her tendrils were rigid, tips glowing red. Kale scrambled up, grabbing his rifle. He didn't hear anything, but he trusted her senses. How many? 2, moving slowly, tactically. She pushed the thermal blanket aside, rising fluidly to her feet. She looked significantly recovered. The deep exhaustion was gone, replaced by a focused intensity. Her proximity to him during rest had clearly worked. The lights under her skin were vibrant, shifting with contained energy. We cannot fight them both in this narrow space, Kale assessed quickly. Not without getting pinned down. We need to get back to the main chamber, find another exit. Agreed, Lyra nodded, her gaze sharp. But they anticipate that. They will expect us to retreat the way we came. She glanced at the rockfall blocking the other end of the chamber. Can we move these? Kale examined the jumble of massive stone blocks. Not without heavy equipment, or maybe your light blast? Lyra shook her head. Too risky. The energy release is uncontrolled. It could bring the whole ceiling down on us, and I am not fully recovered. She looked thoughtful for a moment, her light swirling in complex patterns. There might be another way. The energy conduits within the walls, they are faint, but they form a network. If I can find a nexus point, she placed her hands flat against the wall near the rockfall, closing her eyes. Her lights flowed towards her hands, concentrating into brilliant silver lines that seemed to sink into the stone, tracing invisible pathways. Kale watched, fascinated and unnerved. It was like watching someone interface directly with the ancient structure. Faint humming filled the air. Outside, the soft crunch of a boot on loose debris echoed down the passage. They were close. Lyra, hurry, Kale urged, keeping his rifle trained on the entrance. Almost, Lyra murmured, sweat beading on her temples despite the cool air. The silver light intensified, then flowed suddenly towards a specific point. Low, on the wall near the floor, hidden behind a smaller chunk of debris. There, a junction panel, older design, but the resonance is clear. She pulled her hands away, breathing heavily, but her eyes alight with discovery. It likely controls a hidden passage. A maintenance conduit, perhaps? Kale kicked a smaller piece of debris aside, revealing a section of wall carved with the same intricate, geometric patterns as the main chamber. There was no visible seam, no handle, nothing to indicate an opening. How do we open it? It requires a specific energy frequency, a key. Lyra stepped forward, placing one hand flat on the panel. She closed her eyes again, concentrating. The lights under her skin pulsed, shifting through a rapid sequence of colors, blues, greens, violets, golds, before settling on a specific vibrant shade of turquoise Kale had seen her emit before when she first saw the ruins. A low click echoed from within the wall. A thin seam appeared, outlining a narrow doorway Kale hadn't seen moments before. The door slid silently inwards, revealing a dark, narrow passage sloping downwards. "Quickly!" Lyra urged, pulling him towards the opening just as the first Corvani slaver appeared at the end of the corridor, raising Gaia's weapon. Kale fired a single shot, not to hit but to make the slaver duck, buying them precious seconds. He scrambled through the hidden doorway after Lyra. She slapped her hand back onto the panel beside the opening. The door slid shut with another soft click, just as blaster fire impacted the stone where they'd been standing. They were plunged into absolute darkness. Kale fumbled for his shoulder mount light, flicking it on. The beam illuminated a tight, dusty tunnel, clearly artificial, carved from the same stone as the ruins but rougher, utilitarian. It sloped steeply downwards. Lyra leaned against the wall, catching her breath. Her internal lights provided a soft, ambient glow, pulsing gently. "That was close. Too close," Kale agreed, his heart hammering. "Where does this thing go?" Lyra pushed off the wall, starting down the tunnel. "My senses indicate it connects to the lower levels, possibly emerges near the river again, further downstream, away from the main structure." She moved with confidence, her feet sure on the sloping floor, despite the near darkness. Her hand brushed his as he followed, and this time neither of them pulled away immediately. It was a fleeting contact, practical in the tight space, but it sent another jolt through him. "Lower levels?" Kale asked, keeping his light trained ahead. "More ruins?" "Perhaps." Lyra glanced back at him, her golden eyes luminous in the faint glow. "Or perhaps something else entirely. This place feels layered, built upon." They continued downwards in silence for several minutes, the only sound their footsteps and the distant, echoing drip of water. The air grew cooler, damper. The tunnel leveled out, opening into another small chamber, this one circular. In the center stood a pedestal, and resting upon it was a crystal, roughly the size of Kael's fist, pulsing with a soft internal light that mirrored Lyra's own bioluminescence. Lyra stopped dead, staring at the crystal, her breath catching. The lights under her skin flared, swirling with intense emotion, awe, recognition, longing. "The Heartstone," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. She approached the pedestal slowly, reverently. "What is it?" Kale asked, wary. It looked important and potentially dangerous. "It is a vessel," Lyra explained, her gaze fixed on the pulsing crystal. "A repository for ancestral memory, for genetic lineage, for the soul of a people." She reached out a trembling hand, stopping just short of touching eye. My people believed these were legends, lost relics from the first Luminar, scattered across the galaxy millennia ago." Her light shifted to a deep, vibrant sapphire blue, radiating a profound sense of connection. "This resonance. It is why this place felt familiar. It calls to me." She looked at Kale, her eyes shining. "Kale, this changes everything. This isn't just a ruin, it's a sanctuary, a part of my heritage." Her expression grew determined. "And it might hold the key not just to saving my people, but to understanding the cost." Kale frowned. "The cost? What cost?" Lyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to the pulsing Heartstone. "The cost of survival, Kale. The cost of intertwining." "Explain," Kale demanded, his voice low and steady, cutting through the reverence Lyra radiated towards the glowing crystal. The soft pulse of the Heartstone seemed to thrum in his own chest, an unnerving echo of Lyra's proximity. "What cost are we talking about?" Lyra finally tore her gaze from the Heartstone, turning fully towards him. The sapphire light under her skin softened, swirling with undertones of violet, uncertainty, perhaps even fear. "The joining, the intertwining, as you call it, it is not merely a physical act, Kale, nor soul a transfer of genetic data." She took a deep breath, her tendrils curling slightly, defensively. "It is a complete merging of bioenergetic fields, a permanent empathic and sensory link." Kale stared at her. "A link? Like telepathy?" More profound, Lyra corrected gently. Imagine feeling what I feel, not just emotions, but physical sensations, seeing the world through the spectrum of light I perceive, tasting the energy signatures in the air, feeling the resonance of living things. Her voice trailed off, her gaze distant as if recalling the experience. And I, in turn, would experience your senses, your thoughts, your emotions, your pain, your pleasure, constantly, inescapably. Kale felt a cold dread seep into his bones, pushing aside the lingering warmth from their earlier proximity. You mean no privacy? Ever? I'd be stuck with alien mood lighting and weird energy tastes in my head, and you'd be stuck with, well, me? The thought was horrifying, a total violation of self, of individuality. It sounds intrusive, Lyra offered, her expression understanding. Overwhelming? To a species accustomed to psychic solitude, yes. For Luminar, it is the foundation of our deepest bonds. Trust, intimacy, partnership, they are absolute because there can be no secrets, no barriers. She gestured towards the heartstone. These stones, they facilitate the process, stabilize the merging fields, but they also record the lineage, the history of such joinings. And this horrific cost my title-giving brain conjured up? Kale pressed, needing to know the worst. Is it just the psychic eavesdropping, or is there more? Lyra's lights dimmed further, shifting towards gray. There is risk. If the resonance compatibility is imperfect, the merging can be unstable, painful, degenerative even for one or both partners. Her gaze met his, unwavering, solemn. And the bond is permanent, lifelong. Luminar lifespan is significantly longer than human standard. Kale, if we were to join, your life would be irrevocably tied to mine. Your experiences, your future, even your lifespan might alter. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. You would cease to be solely Kale. We would become something new. Together. Kale felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. This wasn't just about having a kid to save her species. This was about fundamentally rewriting his own existence, losing himself, becoming part of her. An alien princess he'd known for less than a day. The initial attraction, the growing empathy, the protective instincts, they warred violently with his ingrained need for freedom, for self-determination. His entire life had been about avoiding ties, staying unburdened. No, he said, the word tasting like ash. Absolutely not. That's not a joining. That's erasure. Lyra flinched as if struck, the lights under her skin flickering wildly, chaotic patterns of hurt and defensiveness. It is not erasure, it is expansion, connection, shared strength. Her voice rose, echoing in the small chamber. Would you condemn my entire species to extinction out of fear, out of selfish attachment to your isolation? Selfish? Kale shot back, anger flaring. Wanting to remain myself is selfish? What gives you the right to demand that kind of sacrifice? The right of survival, Lyra cried, stepping closer, her own anger blazing in her golden eyes, mirrored by flashes of crimson light. The hope of a future. Is your solitary existence truly worth more than an entire civilization? They stood inches apart, vibrating with conflicting emotions, the air crackling between them, the heartstone pulsed steadily on its pedestal, an silent witness. Kaio could feel her anger, her desperati, on. Her conviction, not through any psychic link, but through the sheer force of her presence, the raw emotion pouring off her. And underneath it, he sensed something else, a deep, aching vulnerability, a fear that mirrored his own. He saw the terrible weight she carried, the burden of her people's fate resting on her slender shoulders. He saw the hope she'd pinned on him, on his compatible song. And he saw the potential connection she spoke of not as erasure, but as something terrifyingly profound. His anger faltered, replaced by a confusing turmoil. He scrubbed a hand over his face. I need air. He turned, needing space, needing to escape the intensity of her gaze, the pull of the heartstone, the impossible weight of her request. He headed back towards the narrow passage they'd entered through. Kale, wait, Lyra called after him, her voice laced with desperation. Where are you going? Just away from this, he threw back over his shoulder, not stopping. Away from you. I can't. He couldn't finish the sentence. He didn't know what he couldn't do. Couldn't condemn her, couldn't sacrifice himself, couldn't face the terrifying possibility that part of him deep down, might actually want that connection despite the cost. He plunged back into the darkness of the sloping tunnel, leaving Lyra alone with the pulsing light of her ancestors' memories and the impossible choice she represented. Kale didn't stop until he was back in the larger chamber where they'd first entered the ruins, the one with the fallen pillar and the carved walls. He paced restless circles in the gloom, the adrenaline from the confrontation leaving him shaky. The silence pressed in, amplifying the turmoil in his head. Erasure, expansion, sacrifice, survival. The words echoed, tangled with the memory of Lyra's desperate eyes, the feel of her energy thrumming beside him, the terrifying intimacy of her proposal. He leaned his forehead against the cool stone of the pillar, trying to regain control. He was Kale, damn it, loner, scavenger, guy who didn't do attachments, let alone permanent interstellar mind melds that might rewrite his lifespan and sensory input. He survived by keeping things simple, transactional. This was the opposite of simple. He pushed off the pillar, resuming his pacing. But could he live with himself if he just walked away? If he somehow got off this planet and left Lyra to her fate, hunted by slavers, carrying the dying hope of her people? He thought of her vulnerability after the energy blast, her quiet determination, the strange sense of rightness he felt when she was near, even when she was infuriating him. He thought of the compatible song she sensed in him. Was it real, or just wishful thinking on her part? A hallucination brought on by desperation? Footsteps echoed softly from the passage leading to the Heartstone chamber. Kale tensed, raising his rifle slightly before realizing it was Lyra. She emerged into the larger space, moving hesitantly. Her lights were dim, a muted blend of violet and gray, uncertainty and sorrow. She stopped several yards away, not crowding him this time, respecting his need for space. Kale, she began, her voice soft, stripped of its earlier anger. I apologize for pressing you, for demanding... She struggled for the word, for placing the weight of my world upon you without considering the weight of yours. Kale lowered the rifle slowly. Her apology disarmed him more effectively than any argument. It's a lot to take in, he admitted gruffly. Permanent psychic link and potentially extended lifespan wasn't exactly in the job description when I picked up this salvage run. A faint smile touched Lyra's lips, though it didn't reach her eye. Yes. No. I imagine not. She clasped her hands in front of her, her gaze fixed somewhere on the floor between them. The choice must be yours, Kale, freely made, without coercion or desperation clouding it. If you cannot accept the joining, I will understand. I will find another way. Or I will face the consequences. Her shoulders slumped slightly, the regal bearing momentarily forgotten. But I needed you to understand what it truly means. Not just the mechanics, but the essence of it. He watched her, seeing not the demanding alien princess, but a woman facing an impossible situation with courage he wasn't sure he possessed himself. He thought about his own life, drifting from port to port, salvaging wrecks, keeping everyone at arm's length. What was he really holding on to so tightly? Freedom? Or just loneliness disguised as independence? What if connection wasn't erasure, but completion? The thought was terrifying, seductive. What happens now? He asked, his voice rough. We can't stay here. The Corvani won't give up. Lyra looked up, meeting his gaze. Determination flickered back into her eyes, strengthening the light under her skin. No, they won't. We need to leave this place. The Heartstone, it is safe here for now. Shh. Shielded by the ruins' energy field. We need to get back to the ship, see if anything is salvageable, or find another way off this planet. Together? Kale asked, the word hanging in the air. Lyra nodded slowly, her expression searching his. If you are willing, your skills and knowledge are valuable, and... She hesitated, the lights blushing faintly pink. Your presence is... grounding, even without the joining. Grounding, he snorted softly. He felt anything but grounded. He felt like he was standing on the edge of a precipice. The choice Lyra represented pulling him towards an unknown future. He took a deep breath. Okay, Lyra. Together, we get out of here, we survive, and the rest, we figure it out later. It wasn't a yes to her impossible proposal, but it wasn't a no either. It was a truce, a postponement, a decision to face the immediate threat side by side. A spark of hope flared in Lyra's eyes, bright and warm, chasing away the grays and violets. A genuine smile transformed her face, making her breathtakingly beautiful. "Thank you, Kale." She took a step towards him, then seemed to think better of it, stopping herself. The restraint, the awareness of his boundaries, meant more than she probably knew. Which way? Kale, no. Deb towards a different passage, one he hadn't explored earlier. Let's try not retracing our steps directly. Maybe we can circle back towards the crash site through a different route. Lyra fell into step beside him, close but not touching. The ambient light from her skin provided enough illumination to navigate the crumbling corridor. They moved in a companionable silence for a time, the earlier tension eased but not forgotten. The shared danger, the acknowledged stakes, had forged a fragile understanding between them. As they rounded a corner, Lyra suddenly stopped, grabbing Kale's arm. Her lights flared, bright white, alert. "Wait, energy surge detected, ahead!" Kale raised his rifle, peering into the darkness. "Corvani!" "No," Lyra breathed, her eyes wide. "Something else. Something powerful." A low, resonant hum filled the air, growing steadily louder. The stone beneath their feet began to vibrate. A section of the wall ahead glowed intensely, the ancient carvings flaring to life with blinding light. Kale shielded his eyes, pulling Lyra back instinctively. The light coalesced, forming a shimmering portal, swirling with colors he couldn't name. And stepping out of the portal into the dusty ruin was another figure. Tall, armed, radiating an aura of immense power and age. With eyes that glowed with the light of captured stars, it looked directly at Lyra, a slow smile spreading across its ancient features. "Found you, little fugitive," it chimed, its voice like galaxies colliding. It wasn't Corvani, it was Luminar. The air crackled with power, ozone thick enough to taste. The newcomer radiated an ancient, overwhelming presence that made the Corvani slavers seem like petty thugs. This Luminara was different from Lyra, broader, his internal lights burning with the steady, intense white gold of a supernova, his features sharper, colder. 4 tendrils, thicker than Lyra's, writhed behind him, crackling with raw energy. He wore robes woven from solidified light, shimmering and shifting, his eyes, like twin neutron stars, fixed on Lyra, bypassing Kale completely. "Executor Vorel," Lyra breathed, her voice tight with shock and fear. The lights under her skin pulsed frantically, chaotic bursts of red and gray. She instinctively moved slightly behind Kale, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by the executor. Vorel's gaze flicked to Kale, dismissive and cold. "The human anomaly. Your desperation sinks low indeed, princess, consorting with primitives." His voice resonated, not just in the air, but inside Kyle's skull. "She's not consorting with anyone," Kale snapped back, gripping his rifle tighter, though he knew it was likely useless against this being. "We're colleagues." Vorel chuckled, a dry, grating sound. "Colleagues? How quaint!" He took a step forward, the stone vibrating under his feet. "Your little quest for genetic diversification ends here, Lyra. The High Council has decreed your methods unsound. Heretical. Your lineage will be purged." "Purged?" Lyra cried, stepping out from behind Kale, her fear momentarily eclipsed by outrage. "You would condemn us all? Our people fade with every cycle. Isolation is death." "Order must be maintained," Vorel stated implacably, his stellar eyes burning. "Purity must be preserved, introducing unstable alien elements." He waved a hand dismissively towards Kale. "Is madness. A threat to the very essence of what it means to be Luminar. You will return with me. You will face judgment." "I will not," Lyra retorted, drawing herself up, her own lights flaring defiantly, sapphire and gold warring with the fear gray. "My path offers hope. Yours offers only stagnation and a slow fade into oblivion." "Hope?" Vorel laughed again, a humorless boom that echoed off the ancient stones. "Your hope lies in diluting our essence with a short-lived, emotionally volatile species? Their resonance is chaotic, chaos specifically is potent, but dangerously unpredictable according to the deep scans we ran upon your pod's distress signal. Bonding with him would unravel you, princess, or worse, create an abomination." He raised a hand, energy gathering around his fingertips, swirling like a miniature galaxy. "Enough talk. Submit, Lyra." Kale reacted purely on instinct. He shoved Lyra back hard, sending her stumbling away from Voral's line of sight, and opened fire. The pulse rounds impacted Voral's shimmering robes, dissipating harmlessly against an invisible energy shield. Voral barely seemed to notice, his attention momentarily diverted. "Persistent vermin," he growled, flicking his wrist. A wave of pure force slammed into Kale, lifting him off his feet and throwing him back against the far wall. He hit hard, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs, his rifle clattering away. Stars exploded behind his eyes. He gasped for air, pain flaring through his ribs. "Kale!" Lyra screamed. Voral turned back to her, his expression contemptuous. "You see? His strength is negligible, his interference point. Less." He advanced on Lyra, hands still raised. "Come now, princess. Do not make this more energetic than necessary." Lyra stood her ground, her body trembling but her gaze defiant. Her own hands rose, her internal lights flaring, gathering her depleted energy for another desperate defense. Kale struggled to push himself up, vision swimming. He saw Lyra bracing herself, saw the overwhelming power Voral wielded. She wouldn't survive a direct confrontation, not in her current state. He had to do something. His gaze fell on the Heartstone passage, then back to Voral, then to Lyra. An insane idea sparked in his bruised brain. "Lyra!" he yelled, his voice hoarse. "The joining! Use the stone! Now!" Lyra hesitated, her eyes wide with shock, torn between facing Voral and Kale's desperate plea. Voral paused, his head tilting slightly. "Joining? Here? Foolish girl, you lack the preparation, the ritual focus, and his consent." "He just gave it, you cosmic relic," Kale shouted. Forcing himself to his knees, he met Lyra's gaze across the chamber, pouring every ounce of conviction he could muster into his eyes. "Do it, Lyra. It's our only chance. Trust me." For a heart-stopping moment, Lyra stared at him, searching his face. He saw the fear, the uncertainty, the impossible weight of the decision. Then something shifted in her expression. Resolve hardened her features. She gave him a single sharp nod. "Trust." She spun around and sprinted towards the passage leading to the Heartstone chamber, Vor momentarily stunned by her abrupt action. "No!" Vor roared, realizing their intent. He launched a blast of energy towards the passage entrance, but Kale, fueled by adrenaline, threw himself forward, tackling Vorvol's legs. The blast went wide, impacting the ceiling and bringing down a shower of rock. Kale scrambled away as Voral kicked him viciously, sending him sprawling again. "Insolent gnat," Voral bellowed, turning his fury on Kale. He raised both hands, power gathering, preparing to obliterate him. Kale closed his eyes, bracing for the inevitable. But the killing blow never landed. A wave of unimaginable energy washed outwards from the Heartstone passage, pulsing through the very stone of the ruins. It wasn't violent like Voral's power. It was profound, resonant, ancient. Kale felt it sink into his bones, into his very cells. It felt like Lyra. Voral staggered back, his own energy shield flickering under the pressure. He stared towards the passage, his eyes wide with disbelief. He Heartstone activated? Merging? Impossible. Kale opened his eyes. The ambient light in the chamber intensified, taking on a soft turquoise hue. He felt different, connected. He could feel Lyra's presence, not just nearby, but with him. He felt her fear, her determination, her fierce hope, all layered over his own adrenaline and pain. And through her senses, the world exploded into new dimensions. The subtle energy flows in the stone, the life signatures of the jungle outside, the burning star intensity of Voral's rage. It was overwhelming, terrifying, exhilarating. Kale, her thought tentative, echoed directly in his mind. It worked? Yeah, he thought back, the process feeling strangely natural. It worked. How do you feel? Changed, stronger, connected. He could feel her drawing strength, not just from the Heartstone, but from him. Their energies intertwining, stabilizing. He's weakening, she sensed. Focusing his attention on Voral, the executor was struggling against the Heartstone's resonance field, his own power sputtering. The ancient artifact, amplified by their joining, was actively disrupting his connection to the Luminar energy matrix. Kale pushed himself to his feet, sharing Lyra's newfound strength. He looked at Voral. No. longer seeing just an overwhelmingly powerful alien, but seeing his energy signature, the subtle fluctuations of his failing shields, the flicker of fear in his stellar eyes. They were two minds, two sets of senses, two beings working as one. Looks like your purity is no match for primitive desperation, Kale said, his voice steady, resonant with shared power. Lyra stepped out of the passage, walking towards Kale. She glowed, radiant and powerful, her lights a stable, vibrant blend of sapphire and gold. Her tendrils swayed gently, alive with energy. She stopped beside Kale, her shoulder brushing his. The contact sent a cascade of shared sensation through them both. They faced Voral together, united, changed. Voral snarled, gathering his remaining energy for a final desperate attack. Abominations! But looking at them now, standing side by side, linked by light and shared consciousness, Kale didn't feel like an abomination. He felt whole. The combined resonance of Kale and Lyra, amplified by the Heartstone, pressed down on Voral. His supernova glow flickered, destabilized by the ancient power and the unexpected harmony of the human-luminar bond. He was an island of chaotic energy against a rising tide of balanced resonance. He's losing cohesion, Lyra sent, her thought a blend of tactical assessment and fierce satisfaction. The Heartstone rejects his frequency. Our joining, it resonates with the stone's core purpose. So what do we do? Kale thought back, feeling the power thrumming between them, a tangible link. He could feel the slight tremor in Lyra's hand, the residual fear beneath her strength. Blast him back through his portal? Too dangerous. Uncontrolled discharge could damage the ruins. The stone. Lyra focused their shared senses. He's trying to restabilize his connection to the luminar energy matrix. If we disrupt that, we cut him off? Kale caught her intent immediately. It was like having a conversation at the speed of thought, layered with sensory data and emotional nuance. It was intoxicating. Vor roared, lashing out with tendrils of raw power. Kale and Lyra moved as one, dodging the erratic blasts. Kale grabbed his pulse rifle. It felt strangely light, an extension of his/their will rather than just a tool. Lyra raised her hands, not projecting energy, but shaping the ambient resonance field emanating from the Heartstone chamber, focusing it like a lens. Now, Kale, target the nexus point on his chest plate, the energy conduit. Lyra growled, directed him, sharing the precise visual data through their link. Kale saw it instantly, a focal point in Voral's shimmering robes where his energy seemed most concentrated. He fired. The pulse round, usually only moderately effective against energy shields, struck the nexus point at the exact moment Lyra focused the disruptive resonance wave. The effect was dramatic. Voral screamed, his light flaring violently, then imploding inwards. His connection snapped, the overwhelming power radiating from him vanished, leaving only the luminar himself flickering erratically like a failing bulb. He staggered, clutching his chest, his eyes wide with shock and sudden weakness. The portal he'd arrived through, tethered to his energy, flickered and died. He was stranded, depowered, defeated. He stared at Kale and Lyra, his expression a mixture of hatred and disbelief. You? Joined? A human? The concept seemed fundamentally impossible to him. Looks like the old ways aren't the only ways, Kale said, keeping the rifle steady. The link hummed between him and Lyra, a constant stream of shared awareness. He felt her relief wash over him, mingled with his own adrenaline come down. What do we do with him? Lyra sent, her thought troubled. He says the council. Killing him would make things worse, Kale finished the thought. But we can't let him go. He'll just bring more of them. He lowered the rifle slightly. Give us the coordinates to your ship, Vor, the one you left in orbit. Vor glared, his diminished lights sputtering. Never. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm, but carrying the weight of their shared strength. Executor, you are cut off from the Matrix. Your power is inert here, suppressed by the Heartstone. You are stranded on a primitive world, hunted by Corvani slavers who would dissect you for your fading light. Kale felt her project the images, the likely fate directly into Voral's mind through the residual resonance. Voral flinched, his composure cracking. Cooperate, Lyra continued, her tone softening slightly, and perhaps survival is possible, for all of us. Vor looked from Lyra's steady gaze to Kale's wary stance, then around the crumbling ruins. truly seeing his predicament for the first time. Defeat, stark and absolute, settled over him. He slumped, the last vestiges of his internal light fading to a dull gray. The vessel? Seraphim's Wing, standard luminar cruiser, he admitted, his voice raspy, devoid of its earlier resonance. He recited the orbital coordinates. Kale stored them in his wrist comp, never taking his eyes off the defeated executor. "Can we trust him?" he sent to Lyra. "No," she replied instantly. "But we need his ship, and leaving him here benefits no one." She turned back to Vor. "You will come with us. You will assist in reaching your vessel. Any treachery." The unspoken threat hung in the air, amplified by the silent hum of their joined power. Vorl nodded numbly. Getting back to the crash site was easier with their combined senses. Lyra navigated the ruins unerringly, while Kale's awareness, heightened by the link, detected the lingering Corvani patrols, allowing them to evade capture easily. Vorl trudged behind them, a sullen, powerless captive. The link between Kale and Lyra was a constant revelation. He experienced the jungle through her senses, the vibrant tapestry of life energy, the subtle shifts in humidity, the scent of blossoms unfurling miles away. She in turn felt the solid ground beneath his boots, the familiar weight of the rifle, the analytical way his mind processed threats and obstacles. It wasn't erasure, it was more. They were still Kale and Lyra, but also something new, seamlessly integrated. The awkwardness and fear surrounding the joining had been burned away in the crucible of combat, replaced by a deep foundational intimacy that transcended words. Reaching the rust bucket, they found it predictably battered but surprisingly intact. The Corvani hadn't found it yet. Working together, their shared consciousness making complex tasks almost effortless, Kale and Lyra managed to cannibalize parts from the wreck, boosting the salvaged emergency beacon with focused energy channeled by Lyra, sending a coded burst towards Vorl's cruiser, using the executor's reluctant confirmation codes. Hours passed in focused work and tense waiting. Vorl remained sullenly silent. Kale and Lyra communicated mostly through the link, a silent ballet of shared thoughts and efficient action. As twilight painted the alien sky in hues of violet and orange through the dense canopy, a shimmer appeared overhead. Vor's cruiser, sleek and silver, descended silently towards their clearing. "Ready?" Kale sent, glancing at Lyra. "Ready," she replied, her thought warm, confident. She met his gaze, her golden eyes luminous. The lights under her skin pulsed softly, a calm sapphire glow that mirrored the peace he felt settling within him, despite the uncertain future. This was terrifying. It was irreversible. It was the most profound connection he'd ever imagined. Standing here, linked mind and soul to this incredible alien woman, he knew he wouldn't trade it. The ramp of the Luminar cruiser lowered. It was time to face the consequences of their choice. Together. Stepping onto the Luminar cruiser was like entering a different reality. The interior was all graceful curves, softly glowing surfaces, and technology that seemed grown rather than built. The air hummed with a low, resonant frequency, calming and alien. Vor, under their watchful eyes, interfaced with the ship's systems, his movements stiff with resentment. Kale kept his rifle ready, though the link with Lyra provided a constant vigilant awareness of the executor's intentions. "He's accessing navigation and primary systems," Lyra confirmed silently, sharing the data stream she perceived flowing between Vorl and the ship. "No alerts triggered, no hidden messages sent." "Good," Kale scanned the bridge. It was elegant, minimalist, operated seemingly by thought and gesture. Quite a step up from the rust bucket. A wave of shared amusement flowed between them. "She had character," Lyra conceded, her thought tinged with affection for his old ship. "This vessel has efficiency, and hopefully enough range to take us far from Corvani territory." With Vor reluctantly piloting under Lyra's precise direction, her familiarity with Luminar systems combined with Kale's instinctive grasp of spatial navigation, proving highly effective, the cruiser lifted silently from Xylos, leaving the jungle planet and its ancient secrets behind. They set a course for the Deep Rim territories, uncharted space where they hoped to lose any potential pursuit from the Corvani or the Luminar High Council. Once they reached cruising velocity, Vor retreated to designated quarters under strict watch protocols, they established through the ship's internal systems. Kale and Lyra found themselves alone on the bridge, the vastness of space unfolding before them on the panoramic view screen. The constant hum of the link between them was a comforting presence now, a silent conversation running beneath the surface of everything else. Kale leaned back in the pilot's seat, far more comfortable than his own, feeling the strange duality of his senses. He saw the starfield with human eyes, but also perceived the faint energy signatures of distant nebulae through Lyra's senses. He felt the solidness of the chair beneath him, and simultaneously the gentle thrum of the ship's core resonating through Lyra. Lyra came to stand beside him, resting a hand lightly on his shoulder. The contact wasn't just physical, it was an anchor point in their shared consciousness, a reinforcement of their bond. Her touch sent waves of warmth and affection through him, mirrored by the soft golden glow pulsing beneath her skin. "We did it, Kale," she sent, her thought filled with wonder and relief. "We survived." "We did more than survive," he thought back, turning his head to look at her. Her beauty, amplified by the soft light of the bridge, and the intimacy of their connection stole his breath. "We became," she smiled, a genuine, radiant expression that reached her luminous eyes. "Yes, we became." She traced a pattern on his shoulder with her fingertips, sending shivers of awareness through their link. "Are you all right with this, the merging? It is still new, intense." He considered her question, truly examined the constant presence of her in his mind, the overlay of her senses, the sharing of emotions. It was still overwhelming in moments, a vast sensory expansion he was only beginning to navigate, but the fear was gone, replaced by something else, a sense of belonging he'd never known, a rightness. "It's a lot," he admitted honestly in their shared space, "more than I ever imagined, but no, I'm not just all right, Lyra. I wouldn't undo it." He reached up, covering her hand with his own. Her skin was cool, smooth, but alive with the energy flowing between them. "It feels necessary." Her relief was a palpable wave. "For me, too." She leaned closer, her exotic scent filling his senses, no longer strange but familiar, comforting. Her forehead rested against his temple. They stayed like that for a long moment, simply existing within the shared space of their bond, drawing strength and solace from each other. The silence wasn't empty, it was filled with the depth of their connection. "What now?" Lyra finally asked, her thoughts soft. "We saved each other. We have a ship. We have Voral contained. But the Council, they won't stop searching. And my people, they still need saving." Kale looked out at the endless starfield. The future was uncertain, dangerous. They were fugitives, bonded in a way few could comprehend, carrying the hope and potential condemnation of an entire species. But he wasn't alone anymore. Now, he thought, feeling a surge of determination, mirrored and amplified by Lyra, we figure out how to do both. Protect ourselves and in a way to offer your people the choice you made, a future based on connection, not just purity. He felt her hope flare, bright and fierce. "Together? Always," he replied, the commitment settling deep within his soul. Within their shared essence, he turned fully in the chair, pulling her gently towards him. Her lights shifted to warm pinks and golds as he framed her face with his hands, marveling at the feel of her, the sight of her, the overwhelming reality of her presence intertwined with his own. The cost had been immense, the loss of individuality as he once knew it. But gazing into Lyra's eyes, feeling her love, her trust, her very being resonant within him, Kale knew with absolute certainty that what they had gained was infinitely more precious. He lowered his head, capturing her lips in a kiss that was both human and luminar, a merging of senses and souls, a promise sealed not just in flesh, but in light.